Our town was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone's business. Church on Sundays was non-negotiable. My parents, devout and God-fearing, instilled in me the fear of God and the devil. I believed every word. But beneath the surface, a rebellious streak was brewing. I craved something more than hymns and sermons. The local bar, the Rusty Tap, became my sanctuary. It was a place where I could escape the pressures of daily life and just be myself. The dim lighting and the haze of smoke created an atmosphere that felt both mysterious and comforting. A dimly lit, smoky den of whispered conversations and clandestine glances. Here, people shared their secrets and dreams, their fears and hopes, all under the cover of darkness. It was a place where everyone was equal, and the outside world seemed to fade away. It was a far cry from the stained glass windows and organ music of my childhood, and I relished the rebellion. The contrast between the solemnity of the church and the lively atmosphere of the bar was stark, and it made me feel alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't a heavy drinker, but the atmosphere, the company, it felt like freedom. The laughter, the camaraderie, the sense of belonging, it was intoxicating in its own right. I found solace in the simple act of being surrounded by others who were also seeking a temporary escape. One night, however, that freedom turned into something else entirely. The familiar comfort of the bar took on an eerie quality. The shadows seemed darker, the air heavier. It was as if the bar itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. And in that moment, I realized that my sanctuary could also be a place of danger. I sat nursing a beer, the amber liquid catching the dim light of the bar. The place had a familiar comforting hum, a sanctuary for the weary. Watching the usual crowd, I saw farmers still in their overalls, their faces etched with the day's toil. They laughed and shared stories, their voices blending into the background noise. Factory workers, their hands rough and calloused, sought solace after a long shift. Then, he walked in, tall, gaunt, with eyes that seemed to devour the room. He moved with an unsettling stillness, like a predator sizing up its prey. People whispered, casting nervous glances, their conversations faltering. This was no regular patron. His presence cast a shadow over the room, a palpable tension that made the air feel thick. Everyone seemed to hold their breath, waiting for what would happen next. "The birthday boy," someone muttered, and a chill ran down my spine. The name alone was enough to send shivers through the crowd. It was as if the very mention of him could summon a sense of dread that clung to the air like a thick fog. He got his name from the strange whispers that followed him, whispers that claimed he could tell you the exact date of your death. People said he had a gift, or perhaps a curse, that allowed him to see the threads of fate that bound us all. His presence was like a dark omen, a harbinger of inevitable doom. He stopped at my table, a crooked smile spreading across his face. His eyes, dark and piercing, seemed to look right through me, as if he could see the very essence of my soul. The room fell silent, and all eyes were on us. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, his voice dripping with a sinister charm. It was not really a question but a statement of intent. He was going to sit whether I wanted him to or not. His voice was a low rasp, like dry leaves rustling in the wind. It carried a weight, a sense of finality that made my heart race. I could feel the eyes of everyone in the room on me, waiting to see what I would do. I wanted to say no, to run, but something held me captive. It was as if an invisible force had rooted me to the spot, rendering me powerless to resist. My mind screamed for me to flee, but my body refused to obey. I nodded, unable to speak. My throat was dry and my tongue felt like lead. The birthday boy took his seat, his presence overwhelming and suffocating. I could barely breathe. He leaned in, his breath stale and cold against my ear. The smell of decay and something else, something unidentifiable, filled my nostrils. It was a scent that spoke of death and decay, of things long forgotten. "Don't worry, boy," he whispered, his eyes boring into mine. His gaze was unrelenting, and I felt as if he could see every secret I had ever kept, every fear I had ever felt. It was a look that promised both knowledge and terror. "Yours is a ways off yet." His words were meant to be comforting, but they only filled me with a deeper sense of dread. The implication that he knew my fate, that he had seen my end, was almost too much to bear. He patted my hand, his touch sending a wave of ice through my veins. It was a gesture that was meant to be reassuring, but it felt like the touch of death itself. I shivered, unable to control the fear that coursed through me, and then, as quickly as he arrived, he was gone, vanished into the night. The room slowly came back to life, but I was left with a lingering sense of unease. The birthday boy had come and gone, but his presence would haunt me forever.